now for a second while I just bear with me while I share my screen with you all. No, that's actually showing the wrong part. Yeah. So Erasmus Plus Sport is very new to Léargas. We, the team, myself and Katie, just started in the end of November, start of December. And our first round of funding is this month, the 23rd of February. And we'll get into details on what that involves during this presentation. So just to make sure everybody's aware of what it actually is. So Erasmus Plus is the EU programme in the fields of education, training, youth and sport. And the current programme is running from 21 to 27. And I suppose in these key areas, the aim is to support citizens in their personal and professional development. So a lot of the actions are around mobility, which means to travel and connect with partners in Europe on things like job shadowing and trainings and various different ways that you can professionally develop. Léargas's role is to manage this funding, the Erasmus Plus programme, and we're the national agency for this. And we also work across other programs such as the European Solidarity Corps, which focuses on volunteering and solidarity projects, and e-twinning, which is like an online platform for schools to connect with European partner schools. We have the priority areas are like the thematic focus of all of the projects that are funded through Erasmus Plus. And these priorities are called horizontal priorities, which means that they run across every action of Erasmus Plus. So they are inclusion and diversity, and this really looks at the promotion of inclusion and diversity, intercultural dialogue, solidarity, equal opportunities and human rights. And for the sports action, we're really focused on this inclusion piece. Then the other priority areas are digital transformations. So looking at incorporating digital and virtual approaches, as well as supporting the development of digital competencies through the project. So this in practice can look like online elements or hybrid approach to exchanges with European partners. So it can be online elements of your exchange or of a training opportunity, some elements being online, for example. Participation, so foster empowerment of young people, promote active citizenship and participation in democratic life across the age group. So that's also very relevant to the sports action for staff involved in the fields of sport. By engaging in these kind of projects, you are engaging in democratic life and engaging in policy as well. So it's all very much linked. And then the fourth one is sustainability, environmental and climate goals. And this is incorporating green practices and green project objectives. So every single Erasmus Plus project looks at these 4 priority areas, and it has to be incorporated into the project plan in some small or large way. So the policy focus for the sports action, so the sport area, it's all coming out of the EU Work Plan for Sport 21 to 24. And this sports plan really looks at the integrity and values in sport, social, economic and environmental dimensions of sport, and the promotion of participation in sport and health enhancing physical activity, which of course is all very relevant in the Irish sport context too. The priorities in European sport policy for 2023 are gender equality in sport, green sport, that's sustainability, the post-COVID recovery, the European sport model, so that's the model that the European Commission take for sport. So it's all built into that European sports policy, that EU sports plan. And then safe sport and athletes' rights as well. So they're the focused priority areas for 2023. So just to be aware of them, I just thought it would be nice to pull them out. And then finally, just around the sport aims for the Erasmus Plus program. So what's built into the program guide under sport, in the Erasmus Plus program guide for sport in 2023 is really around that grassroots sport. So it's really around focusing on grassroots sports. So the kind of non-elite, non-professional sport, sport that really benefits local communities. Develop the European dimension in sport and international cooperation. So really that kind of creating those partnerships and creating that European dimension, building capacity of grassroots organizations. So all of these projects are supposed to result in enhanced capacity in these organizations, so that there has to be a project aim, a purpose for going on a mobility. Improve the knowledge of sports staff. So again, through job shadowing or training, your knowledge would be improved. Promote common European values through sport. So again, that's very, very easy to see how that would happen through a project with a European partner. Promote active and environmentally friendly lifestyle and active citizenship, and establish European networks of coaches and sports staff. And that last one is so tangibly linked to our key action, because that's essentially, in essence, what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect and create networks of coaches and sports staff in Europe. So what does it look like then? So what's new is this is the very first year of decentralized Erasmus Plus funding in sport. So the Erasmus Plus Sport has existed for a number of years through the Commission, through centralized action, but this is the first mobility action and the first time it's been decentralized to all the national agencies to manage. So it's the first time Léargas have worked in this field. And our dedicated key action is the mobility of staff in the field of sport. And in practice, that means a group of staff or coaches in a sporting organization or club going to a European partner to participate in certain activities. And we'll go through what those activities can be. And the objective is really to give an opportunity to staff and volunteers, primarily in grassroots sports, to gain new skills by traveling abroad within Europe and gaining new skills by spending time with a European partner. So who can apply? So just in terms of eligibility, at the moment, to be eligible for the sports funding, you need to be a sports staff, which can mean either paid or voluntary, but you have to be connected to a club or an organization. So you have to be a coach or be a development officer, for example, or whatever the case might be. Whether it's in a paid or voluntary capacity is fine, but you have to be connected to a club or an organization. You can't just be an individual interested. Grassroots sport. So this means physical leisure activities practiced regularly at non-professional level. And so like when we say sport, we mean sport and physical activity. So it's not just your team sport, it's everything. In terms of it, like it can include things like yoga and boot camps and that kind of thing, right through to obviously football, hockey, and all the kind of the known team sports and athletics and everything like that. The types of activities that are covered under our fund at the moment are job shadowing. So this is learning new practices and gathering ideas through observation and interaction with peers, coaches, volunteers, and other staff members in their daily work at a hosting organization. So this would be from 2 days up to 14 days. So kind of quite short term mobility. So it's like a short term kind of going from Ireland over to, say, for example, Spain, to a club to job shadow with someone over there that you've identified as being very expert in a particular area. Like it could be the inclusion of female coaches, for example, and you job shadow with them and learn through that job shadowing, I suppose, and observation. Then the other type of activity would be around coaching or training assignments. Now, these are longer. These are from 2 weeks up to kind of 2 months. So these are a much longer, bigger commitment. So that would be around coaching and providing training and a hosting organization. You'd be going to coach alongside them as a way to learn through completing tasks and exchanging with peers. And then the third area is an optional extra. So this is a preparation visit. So you can only apply for a prep visit if you are applying for job shadowing or coaching and training. And just to say as well that in the program guide, it says that you can do one or more activities. So you can apply for job shadowing and apply for coaching in the same project, in the same application form. And then the prep visit can be added on top of that. And the idea of a prep visit would be to kind of support that arrangements for the mobility. So it might be the kind of group leader or the person leading out on the application going over to the partner country. So say take Spain again as an example, you'd go over to Spain for kind of maybe 1 day to 2 days, or a max of kind of 2 days, and you'd just have meetings with the partner to set up and to really build that relationship so that you know exactly what the program is going to be when your coaches go out to job shadow or coach or train. So just in terms of what kind of applying to Erasmus Plus Sports would look like. So kind of the steps you need to take is really familiarize yourself with the program. It's this, the program guide is this very, very big document of about 400 plus pages. But the good news is the sports mobility section is only 10 pages long, and it really spells out in a table the kind of the different criteria and the different types of funding that you're eligible for under the different criteria. So it's very well laid out, I think, and it's very straightforward, and it gives you a good sense of the types of activities that are funding, like the travel, your subsistence, your inclusion support. So for every project that we do, there's the option to if you're sending people with fewer opportunities and they need additional support, there are inclusion supports there to ensure that they're able to participate. So for example, if someone needed a visa, or if someone needed to pay for a passport and weren't in a position to do that, there are supports available there to help with that. There's also support for like exceptional costs as well, if you needed extra funding for kind of exceptional things, like if the country you were going to was exceptionally higher to travel to than the program, the allocated amount for that country allows. And then I suppose from our side, so myself and Katie, we work on the quality side of the application. So we really want to see really good projects coming through this. And like what you need to do, I suppose, is to, before you even think about applying, is really think, well, what is your project? What is the aim or objective of what you want to do? So we run a number of events coming up to a project deadline or an application deadline. Things like project labs that try and really work with you to try and identify what the need is in your organization and how a mobility project can help your organization to overcome that need. Then when you have your project idea and you decide to go for an application, you need to register your organization to get an OID number. So before you can apply, you need an OID number. It's quite a straightforward process. It takes about 10 minutes, but then afterwards, there's a number of documents that would need to be uploaded by your organization in order to get national agency certification on it. You need to check your eligibility. So there's a list of eligible organizations that can apply for Erasmus Plus funding in general up on our website, and we will link that in to the follow-up documents that go out after this webinar. But I suppose for the sports sector in particular, we are working on broadening this eligibility criteria out. But at the moment, to be eligible for Erasmus Plus funding with Léargas, you need to be an incorporated company. So that's one of the criteria. Then you need to start your application form. So the application forms are held on an EU portal, and we have all the links through our website on our sports page, a link that will bring you directly to applying for the application, or directly to the application form website. And at the moment, because our deadline is next week, we have no further events for you to come to, but we wouldn't be expecting anybody here today to suddenly decide to apply next week. It might be that you're just starting to think about it, and we'll have a number of events throughout the year looking towards the funding round for 2024. But in theory, if you were going to apply, you'd start your application form on the portal, and we're available, myself and Katie, to answer any questions that you might have about that application process as well. So like I said, our deadline is next week. It's the 23rd of February at 11 a.m. And these projects will start between the 1st of June and the 31st of December of 2023. So that means that the project doesn't need to start until the 31st of December. And then the project length can go on from 3 to 18 months for this mobility. Just to let you know, there are other actions that are centralized actions for sport, and they're really around very similar aims in terms of capacity building and grassroots sport development and all of the kind of sport aims I mentioned a few slides back. But these actions are, you apply directly through Brussels, not through Léargas. So they are the key action around capacity building in the field of sport, the not-for-profit European sport event, small scale partnerships. So one of the big differences between those projects and our project at the moment is that for our one, you don't need to have an identified partner before you apply. So that can be quite beneficial if you're only new to Erasmus Plus and you want to kind of start with a mobility project. You don't need to have a European partner yet. You can identify the European partner after you're successful in your application. And the deadline for all of those centralized actions is the 22nd of March. And we can send details, a link to where you apply for that as well. Now, just other opportunities we're trying to build a kind of a program for like Erasmus Plus Sport at the moment. And part of that is really working with our colleagues in training and cooperation activities. And one of our first events is going to be on the 24th of May, and it's called Keeping in the Game. And it's really looking around so how we can use solidarity funding in sport to address some of the issues that are arising in sport in Ireland at the moment. And Keeping in the Game is really focused on keeping like young teens who might drop out. How do we retain them in sport and keep them in physical activity? And we're going to have a panel discussion on the day and a keynote speaker, and then break into workshops. So it'd be really interesting for the sector, particularly if you're working with young people, kind of in teenage years. It'd be really interesting to participate in that event. It's going to be on in Dublin, but we haven't confirmed the venue yet. But we will be sending out details on this, and we can send it out through Emily as well when we know more details and have the invitation ready to go. Then there's some training opportunities in Europe. So there's Sustainability in Sport conference, which is on, or it's kind of a training, I suppose. It's a 3-day training, and it's on in Finland from the 29th to the 31st of May. And then there's a kickoff event, which is really around strategic thinking around the development of Erasmus Plus Sport. And this is it's between youth and sport, and it's on in France. It's been held by the national agency in June. Now, we don't have a huge amount of details yet, but there is an application portal opened on both of those events, and we can send more information if anyone is interested afterwards as well. And just some of those European training activities, I've heard from my colleagues that they're a fantastic way to kind of dip your toe into European funding. So you can just apply as an individual within your organization, if you feel like the topic is really relevant to you, you can go and experience this for 3 to 4 days in a program country. It's usually done by Léargas would support the sending costs. So we'd cover your flights, and then the receiving national agency, so say Finland in the case of the sustainability in sport, they would cover accommodation and food for the duration of the trip. So they're a really good opportunity to just kind of learn what it's like and connect with European partners, and also, you know, really learn around a particular issue or a topic that's being discussed over the 3 days as well. So they could be a really interesting one to participate in. And this is our team. So Katie, myself, and Celine is the head of Youth Sport and European Solidarity Core. And that's kind of it for the moment. I know we have a question session later, so I won't share that yet.
Great. Thanks for that, Suzanne. That was a really comprehensive overview of the Erasmus Plus sport mobility projects and the other opportunities that are out there for sport organizations in Ireland as well. So Cormac, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Thank you for that, Susan, and thanks to the organizing team in the Wheel for organizing the session. My 5-year-old is after entering the room here, so that's not a good move. So bear with me. So look at just to say from Sport Ireland point of view, just to firstly say Sport Ireland is kind of the national agency that's responsible for sport. So of course we welcome any new funding opportunities and some, you know, obviously support that's available to sporting bodies to be able to actually do things, if you like, you know. So first of all, that's important to say that, and so it's fantastic that both Léargas and the Wheel are you know, A, I suppose making some opportunities available, and B, supporting sport organizations to avail of those opportunities. So firstly, look at, I mean, it's a complicated picture, Europe. It can be complicated. So I suppose, and I think Susan hopefully is demystifying it a bit. But
oh, Cormac, you just, yeah.
the main point I would say is that that this is a fantastic entry point for most sporting bodies and indeed community organizations. Yeah. 1 second there. I'm going to have to put a child out of the room. 1 second. Excuse me for a moment.
No worries. Child wrangling kind of fits into the theme of sport, doesn't it? Suzanne, there's kind of a good, quick question that maybe you could answer in the meantime. Yes. Garrett asks, do you need to have been granted Erasmus Plus funding to attend those TCA workshops, or can anybody attend the workshops?
No, they're for anyone. So that's why they're such a good kind of first step. You don't have to be in receipt of Erasmus Plus or European Solidarity funding to access them.
Hi guys, sorry about that midterm break, eh? Fantastic. You can all hear me okay? Great. So yeah, look at, I mean, I think just to maybe reiterate and to say that, you know, firstly, it's welcome that Léargas are the national entity now that are in a position to administer some direct funding under Erasmus Plus for sport. You know, up to now, my understanding was that it was mostly through European centralized programs that Erasmus funding was administered. And so this is a step closer to obviously the sport organizations, and it makes it a bit easier. And of course, the second piece is that you don't have to establish the partnership and develop the project applications and indeed go into the process of vetting of applications and such like, which is, you know, can be daunting and can be complicated. So what this means is it's an easier first step for organizations to consider, and it's a bit closer to home, as it were, which is very you know, beneficial. The second point to say is, and when I've been looking at this mobility program for under Erasmus, it's a really good fit for sport. You know, sporting bodies can, you know, hopefully they can connect with other sporting entities and partners, and it's a useful thing to be able to go and spend time in another country to learn and see what they're doing, to see what they're, maybe to go and attend a conference or a training event, or indeed shadowing a counterpart for a couple of days, just to learn and see how they're actually doing their work. And I think we always have to keep that in mind in Ireland. We're an island nation on the edge of Europe. It's useful and important for us to see how things are getting done in other areas, and especially if they're being done very well. And if we're able to identify an area, a particular country, some partners, a project that's similar to our own, that we can learn from, and we can take that learning back into our own work. I think that's invaluable. I did a study visit myself to Eindhoven in the Netherlands last year, just for 2 days, over to a partner of ours, which they hosted us for the 2 days. And we had a busy schedule of just looking at different projects and looking at different things. And my God, it was just eye-opening. And of course, it's very, very good as well for network development and partnership development with those entities that you are going to visit and interact with, and you develop a relationship with them that you carry forward. So I think it's a kind of almost like a hidden benefit that you can go back and connect and reconnect, and maybe they can come and visit you, and you can develop that relationship. So for me, and in the sport context, I just think there's just a ton of benefits here and opportunities. But the challenge is that sporting bodies, have to have a mission themselves, have to have a project that they want to go to a particular country and go and actually kind of go and learn. And, they have to have staff that are willing to, put themselves forward, go maybe travel for a couple of days, or indeed a network of colleagues, coaches, volunteers. And so there's work, involved to actually make it happen. And then you've got to actually identify the partner maybe you're going to go to, the country you want to go to, and indeed all of that. So there is a bit of work involved, and that's where it's very, very welcome that Léargas are hosting the project labs, which I think is a great idea. It really teasing out just the detail of, okay, what are you thinking? How does this align with the pillars and the I suppose you might call it the vertical and horizontal pillars that Susan referred to. But I think most projects can fit into those, European objectives in some way. We're all in the business of participation in sport. We're all in the business of, promoting healthy, active lifestyles and physical activity and engagement and sustained engagement in sport. Inclusion and diversity, of course, is another agenda and a topic that we're all working on, and most sporting bodies are progressing and looking to try and develop, if you like, their policies, their strategies, their approaches within these areas. So I think that most sporting bodies, be it at a grassroots level in terms of clubs, community groups and such like, and right up to NGBs and national federations, can if you like, interact with this program, and it's reasonably easy compared to some of the the other ones that you have to go through that process of developing project applications and such like. So for me, it's an easy entry point, and it's something that I'd be strongly encouraging kind of most sporting bodies to consider. If you think that you might be able to bring some volunteers out on a learning mission, you might be able to bring some coaches on a training mission to actually develop some training abilities. You might be able to even go to a large event, for example, like maybe a conference or something like that on a particular topic, and that might be eligible. I'm not fully sure if it is, but I'm sure Susan and Katie will work through that with you all. So that's enough from me. I think there's something in this for every sporting body, and as I said, it's something that's accessible. And I think and it's not a high bar to cross to actually get there. And once you actually crack it in year one, or once you get one project there, I think it's likely something that you could repeat, and you could actually, you could actually do every maybe second year. You might come up with something else that you want to bring some other people to, or it's something that will be there. So overall, it's very positive, and I'd certainly be encouraging projects to be, to be emerged, to consult with the local sports partnership networks, consult with and push your national governing bodies of sport to see if they can support some of the applications if that's needed. So there are if you want to call it, the structures of sport, be it national federations or national governing bodies or, local sports partnerships or other entities that, should be engaging with this. And, if the grassroots clubs can connect with the larger entity, for example, I think that's pretty important, like, to kind of make the application process a bit easier, But look, that's it for me. I'm sure people have plenty of questions. I certainly have questions myself, but it's certainly something I would be encouraging all sport bodies to get behind and give it a go, Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cormac. That's definitely a ringing endorsement for participation in Erasmus Plus sport funding. And I'd definitely be echoing the excitement over having a national contact point now in Ireland for Erasmus Plus sport. So our role in Access Europe is really to kind of funnel organizations towards the correct EU funding program. And before, for Erasmus Plus sport, it was just kind of, oh, you have to go and kind of chat with Brussels. And so it's nice that we have Léargas here in Ireland. They're very accessible, have lots of great information, very friendly and approachable. So it's definitely encouraging. So I think before we go on to the question and answer session, I see a lot of good questions coming into the chat. What we wanted to do is use Menti to throw out some questions to the group, just to get a sense of how you're kind of feeling about Erasmus Plus Sport, having heard from Suzanne and from Cormac. So I'm just going to pop a Menti link into the chat. So just bear with me a moment. Okay, so that should come up, and there are 3 questions that we're looking for you all to answer. So the first one is just, having listened to those presentations, how are you feeling now about Erasmus Plus sport projects? Excited? Overwhelmed? And then the next question is, what kind of supports would you need to apply for or participate in an Erasmus Plus sport mobility project? And then the last question is just, do you think you'll make an application for an Erasmus Plus sport project in the future? So I'll give you all a few moments just to answer those questions. And I will share the results in the background. Okay, so good. So we got excited, interested, curious. It's all very positive so far. Informed, passionate, hopeful, clarity on eligibility. Okay, so we can talk about that in the Q&A session. Great. So Suzanne, does that give you a good sense of how people are feeling?
Yeah, absolutely, Emily. That's great.
Cool.
Yeah, really, really good. Good.
Right.
And we'll address the eligibility questions and the Northern Ireland questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So let me just see if there's any answers on the next slide there. Okay, great. So what kind of supports would you need to apply? Information on the application process, more infos on the types of projects that are eligible, and finding a partner, finding partners with a similar background, what a successful project looks like. Yeah. Shaping a project to fit the criteria, finding partners, guidance on projects that are suitable, and details required for applications. Okay. Understanding the parameters of the project, landing zone, for example, budgets, activities, etc. Great. Okay, and then just the last slide there. Great. So we have no no's. That's very
amazing.
Positive. You've done your job, Suzanne. Excellent.
That's great. Katie will be kept busy.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now, and we can open up the floor for the Q&A. So It's just, yeah, I think the first question that came in was, are Northern Ireland based organizations
yeah.
eligible?
Oh, unfortunately, no, is the answer. They're in the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom are no longer a participating program country. So very unfortunate, but the answer is no.
Okay.
And it just in terms of, I know because in sports it goes full island oftentimes, so like that can be an issue. So there was an example, there's some questions around, like, say if a coach is part of your so say one of your coaches of maybe 5 or 6 participants is living in Northern Ireland, can they participate? And the others are in the Republic. The answer is no, they can't. There has to be resident in Ireland to participate in this mobility.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne. And the next question is from Colin White. Where would an Ireland registered European Sports Federation fit in to apply for Erasmus Plus?
So a sports federation.
So Colin, if do you want to come off mute maybe and address the question to Suzanne with just a bit of context?
Is this in relation to the Irish Kidney Association?
No, it's
No,
actually in relation to the European Transplant and Dialysis Sports Federation. I just recently became president of it. It's currently registered in Hungary, but we're actually looking to move it to Dublin as its base. And I'm just wondering, kind of within the Erasmus kind of umbrella or whatever, where would we fit in?
I'm not entirely sure, Colin, so I'll have to go investigate and get back to you. I imagine for the centralized actions, it might be, that might be okay, but at the moment, for this mobility one, I don't think so, especially if it's registered to Hungary. I don't think so.
Hungary at present, but as I say, we're hoping to register it here.
Yeah. I'll have to ask. It's not kind of straightforwardly answered in our program guide. So I'd have to ask.
Susan, just a question there for myself. Do you envisage that this program will open on an annual basis? So in a sense, you will be looking, this is something that's going to be running every year for the next couple of years.
Yes, absolutely, Cormac. Yeah. So between now and 2027, there's a commitment that is built into the program. And we would hope that maybe it's grown on as well. So there's other key actions added to it, hopefully. But we don't know at the moment. We just know this mobility of staff in the field of sport is our sole action under the decentralized Erasmus Plus Sport. But it is built into the program between now and 2027. So that means every year there'd be a round, at least one round, with an optional second round if we don't disperse all of our funding.
Thanks, Suzanne.
And just, Colin, in relation to the question around would the Irish Kidney Association be considered as eligible? I think the answer is yes. I think if you can link it directly to sports. So if you have coaches and if you're working with, athletes, and in particular athletes with fewer opportunities, I think we could definitely make a case that would be eligible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then we had a question from Brendan. If you are affiliated to a national body, which is a company, are you eligible to apply?
A national body, which is a company, yeah. So, sorry, could you give me the example, Brendan?
Gymnastics Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when you said incorporated company earlier on, I thought every sports organization at grassroots had to be a company. That got me a bit alarmed.
So you're affiliated to Gymnastics Ireland, is that right?
Yeah.
And Gymnastics Ireland are incorporated, I think. Yeah. So that's fine. It kind of just comes down to probably the contracting would be with Gymnastics Ireland.
So they would have to give their imprimatur on it.
Yeah,
I think there
Yeah,
is
but
somebody
it
else in here
it
from
would be
Japan.
yourselves applying. Yeah. yeah.
Okay.
And then I think a similar question is coming in about the local sports partnership. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a question from Suzanne. Is a third level body eligible for this funding, or do we have to apply directly to Brussels under the other funding streams? I'm involved in an LSP that is not a standalone entity. It's part of the county council.
Okay, so there's a
Yeah.
couple of questions there. So
Yeah.
in relation to the third level, the Erasmus Plus for third level, that program is around higher education, and that is managed by the Higher Education Authority, the HEA. So that you wouldn't be eligible for this mobility. But in relation to the local sports partnerships, some are standalone and some are part of the county council. The county council is an organisation that we can fund in Léargas, because I know that because there's precedent. We have funded county councils in the past through other some of the other sectors. So say, for example, in European Solidarity Corps, we have funded a county council before. So I know that is eligible, yeah.
Just for clarity, just in terms of the third level, so while we would have third level clubs here, they're affiliated to their national governing body, and a lot of them are also involved in community initiatives. So it's not exclusively higher education.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that case, then they could apply through the national governing body. That would be
Okay.
acceptable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of nuance in all of the examples. So yeah, but it's good to talk it through.
Susan, I think it's fair to say that a lot of, if you want to call it grassroots community sport organizations or clubs and such like, while they may be affiliated, of course, to their national governing body as such, right? They wouldn't necessarily have a company structure, that CLG structure. They would be established as sporting associations and such like, and would have bank accounts and all of that, constitutions, but wouldn't necessarily have that CLG or company structure. So in a sense, for all of those entities, it would be expected that they would be working with or through a third and another entity that is, if you like, eligible. So in a sense, that would be your local authorities, your local sports partnerships, or your national federation.
Yes, exactly. So whether you're, because I've been speaking to a lot of sports clubs, and some would feel more associated to their national governing body, and others would feel more linked to their local sports partnership, for example. So or the county council,
local authority. Yeah,
the local authority. So wherever you might see a fit, I suppose would be the best avenue to go down. It's only really in relation to the contracting part. The actual application is still led out by you at your grassroots club level. I suppose also to say that we are looking into this eligibility criteria in Léargas. So hopefully we'll get more clarity on it going into the future, but this is the first year of this funding, and this is the way it has to be done legally at the moment. For this year anyway.
Okay, and then we have a couple questions from Connor. So what are the funding limits in terms of the program?
Okay, that's a really good question. So the answer is it's all spelled out in the program guide in relation to everything is kind of got a unit price. So say the travel costs. So usually for mainland Europe, the unit cost for travel per participant. So that would mean like each person participating in the mobility would be entitled to a lump sum of €275 for just the flight costs, say. If you find a way from Ireland as an island to do green travel, you're entitled to a very little amount extra. Green travel in the European program guide means basically rail, and it's not really accessible for Ireland. So you're probably looking at in the region of like €275 to contribute towards your flights. It's important to say as well, and this is explained very clearly by our finance team in our application clinic, that the Erasmus Plus program is co-financing. So it is expected that your organization or club would be putting a contribution towards everything as well. It's not going to, you're not going to make money out of an Erasmus Plus project. There is contributions to your organization. There's organizational support of 350. I think I'm right, Katie, am I? 350 per participant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that has to go a long way, maybe to support your partner organization as well. They won't be in receipt of anything additional. So there is, yeah, but everything is broken down by activity to activity. And what we are estimating is, say, for a mobility of maybe up to 5 people for kind of maybe up to 10 days, it might be in the region of €10,000 altogether. So that would be an estimate, but it's not a maximum. You can apply for whatever your activities are. The application form calculates the total. Katie has done a lot more in-depth kind of digging into the application form than me. So Katie, if you want to add anything to that, please do.
Yeah, it's just, if you do want to go in and have a look at the application form for the funding, it's very, very simple. You just put in where you're going or where you think you're going, such as, let's say, France, the amount of people that are going to go, maybe 3 coaches, and it does, and the amount of days you're going to go for and which activity, and that's all you have to put in, and it will come up with the cost itself. So you're not putting in any of the details of the cost of things. It'll do that all for you. But yeah, as Suzanne said, it's all there in the program guide of how much is allocated to each section.
And just to say, for this project, the maximum number of participants is 10. So it can be 1 to 10 participants in the mobility. So there's quite a good scope. And what we were saying to everybody as well, if you're taking it on as your first application to an Erasmus Plus program, for your own sake, keep it simple. Keep your project quite simple. You can always apply again if it's a success. You can always go again in another funding round, but keep it simple, and your project could evolve into maybe even a small scale partnership application to Brussels another year. You never know. So I think Emily might echo that advice, because she advises people a lot around European funding, but just it's a lot to get your head around the first time round, but you know, there's massive potential there and huge benefits for organizations. So to kind of give it a go, keep it as simple as possible. Like maybe start with 3 or 4 participants, go into an organization in a European partner that you're familiar with already. Would be a really good first step.
Yeah, we'll definitely echo that advice. And we're always kind of straightforward with people. Like, your first project application might not be successful, but generally you will always get very like comprehensive and helpful feedback, whether it's from like yourselves or from the commission, which can only kind of serve to build a better application the next time you go for it. And follow-on question relating to budgets. Can contributions be through benefit in kind with a partner organization?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that the point is that this isn't going to go the full 100% way, to maybe cover all the costs, and that's something to be mindful of, especially when if you're applying through a grassroots sports club. But like, I think it's really, really important to be mindful of that.
Another good question: what level of reporting is expected on the sports mobility program?
There is reporting, and it is linked to your final payment drawdown as well. So the way that it's divvied up is usually 66%, like about 2/3 up front after contracting stage. So once you're if you're approved and you're accepted, your project is accepted and funded, you'd go through a contracting stage with Léargas, and then after that you'd receive your first payment, and that would be about 2/3, and the last third is only dispersed after final report stage. So the reason they do it that way is because if aspects of your activities change, so say you applied for 7 participants but only 5 actually went, you're only going to get the final funding for 5, not 7. So it's kind of proven what you did, what you said you were going to do, and then your final report is proving what you actually did. And your final fund is based on that final report.
Mm-hmm. So like typically there, Susan, you'd be retaining all receipts and all of that type of stuff and expenditures and all of that. And, you know, you'd be submitting that, would you?
Yeah, like there's a list, but you don't, the good news is you don't have to keep all the receipts. So it's unit costs, not actual costs. Yeah. So say, for example, for your flights, whatever the cost of your flight is, you're still per participant getting 275 if you're going to France. If you're going further away, it's a little bit more, but there's travel bans and there's subsistent rates as well, depending on how expensive the country you're going to is. So of course, Ireland is the highest band and the highest end of the highest band in the European programme.
Right.
So yeah, but that has to cover accommodation and food. So you don't have to receipt your accommodation and food, but that's all you're allowed per day for your subsistence. Does that make sense? So you're not receipting that, but you do have to keep track of which who your participants were. You'll have to send all that kind of documentation, you know, like sign-in sheets and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, there is supporting evidence with your final report, but it's not too onerous. No. I've gone through final reports and it's not too much work. It is work, but it's not too bad.
And then just on enticing people to our expensive country, are there opportunities to be a host organization?
What after the funding round, I'll be working with, and Katie will be working with our European counterparts to kind of figure out ways of linking organizations up together. So there will be a number of projects in Europe that are funded and they'll be looking for partners. So you might find people reaching out to the national governing bodies or the local sports partnerships. And I would encourage you, if you are asked to host, it would be a really good experience too. But we don't know how that's going to filter down, because it's every applicant. Really the onus is on them to find their partner. It's not on us as the national agency, but we have a support function in that. So we're going to help people by hosting partner seminars. So that might look like some kind of a Zoom event with European partners where you have the opportunity to network in those kind of seminars.
Sure, and there were like a few questions in the Menti just about like finding partners, and would you have any other tips for people on how they can find partners?
We're saying to people, and it's been received well, to really think of within your own sport, who are the partners. Like we say in the project labs when we are working it out, it's very obvious to some people. There's like maybe an expert coach in France that they're aware of and they'd love to learn from, for example, or you know, they know a country is just particularly good at gender equality in sport. So they might be looking to Sweden or Iceland for that because they've Googled it and really researched who are good at that kind of work. So, and then from there, you know, they find a partner based on their sport, or they find a partner based on an interest. So it's really thinking of what you know already and working from there. But then also, like embassies also have a role in helping find partners. So they would, like the French embassy, for example, came to us and said they're interested in helping people. So if you're successful, you could contact the French embassy, for example, and they'd help you find a partner, just as an example, but that's across the board. And just to be clear as well, the program countries are all EU countries, plus the third countries associated to the program, and they are Iceland, Norway, Turkey, Serbia, and North Macedonia, and Liechtenstein. And I've probably forgotten one, but it's all in the program guide.
The Bible, the program guide.
The Bible, yeah, of Erasmus Plus funding, yeah. Absolutely.
Great. So I think that's it for the questions in the chat. We're a small enough group, so if anybody wants to come on the mic and ask any questions for Suzanne or Cormac, feel free to do so.
If I could maybe ask, in the area of transplant and dialysis sport, like the Irish Kidney Association, we would have recognised partners right across Europe, in kind of most of the countries on your list. So, like, could funding facilitate? Like, does each country have an opportunity to tap into this type of funding? That, for example, if Ireland were to host a kind of a training opportunity for representatives of kind of all these people coming from a similar background to ourselves, how would that work?
Well, at the moment, Colin, it's the other way. So if you're applying in Ireland, you're applying to go and job shadow. You're not applying to host a training. So
no, I get that, but do other countries have access to this type of funding?
Yeah, so every participating country is has their own fund. Yeah, because it's completely decentralized to every national agency. So every country in the program has a national agency, and every national agency now has the sport action. Yeah.
So if we found a host country, all our partners or whatever, we could all decide to kind of see.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee that in that country that they have the means to, you know, it really depends. You have to be successful in their round of funding. So every country has a different budget, and it really depends on whether it meets the, you know, whether the applications meet the criteria. It'd be a lot to line all that up, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
But we do say as well, I suppose, and this is a tip we're getting from our colleagues, is that you need to look at what's in the program guide and build a project out of that, as opposed to having an idea first and fitting the funding into it, because it is quite like, it's very loose in terms of there's lots of potential and lots of opportunity within this mobility, but at the same time you really need to be hitting on what's been asked in that program guide and looking at how this could be an opportunity for your organization then. So again, like your example there is really amazing. Like, that'd be really amazing to see lots of different partners come to a training in Ireland. But to line that up with this mobility might be difficult. So it mightn't be the right avenue for funding that. I just put a link in the chat box to our the eligibility page, just to have a run through. And as I said, it does say at the bottom of that, if you are ineligible, so say if you're an incorporated company, for example, there are ways of linking with an incorporated company or a recognized body. So we are working on ways of that. So do speak to us after if you fit into that category.
Right. Any other questions?
I might share the program guide on the chat box so people can have a quick look at it as well.
Yeah, please do.
I know Emily will be sharing things afterwards too.
Yeah, I will send a very thorough follow-up email. So if there are no other questions, I might just wrap up by kind of sharing some of the supports that Access Europe provides, because a lot of them kind of overlap with some of the things that we talked about today in terms of like finding partners and assistance with reporting and things like that. So I'm just going to share some slides real quick. So Access Europe, here's the team. It's myself, my colleague Christina, and our manager Emma. So we are basically the European programs team within the wheel. And so Access Europe, what it is a capacity and support building program to help Irish civil society organizations to better access EU funding. And the way that we do this is by researching all of the kind of different EU funding opportunities that are relevant to Irish civil society organizations. We post them on our Access Europe website, and we have really handy overviews and breakdowns of all the different EU funding programs. And then we include all the upcoming funding deadlines in our free monthly Access Europe newsletter, which you can sign up to on our website. And I'll also include a link to sign up to that in the follow-up email. So we do free training and events like the one that we've had today. We also do just kind of webinars on the other EU funding programs and things around EU policy and how best to engage with it. We do one-to-one advice. So if you have a project idea and maybe you don't know where it fits in the EU funding universe, we can meet with you individually to signpost you. And once you do get EU funding, we can also help you kind of set up project management processes around your reporting, around your budgeting and finances. So we're kind of there from application to project management to reporting phase. So there's somebody kind of there with you to guide you through the process and to make it enjoyable. And then in terms of networking, we actually had our first partner matchmaking session yesterday around kind of these serve calls, which are around citizen engagement. So we will be looking to run more partner matchmaking sessions in the future for different funding calls. So Suzanne, we might link in with you on how we might collaborate on that. And then finally, just in terms of helping people to find partners, so we have our own partner database, and that's also on our website. So any Irish civil society organization that's interested in setting up, interested in EU funding can set up a profile for their organization on our website. So I've just highlighted what Donegal County Council's profile looks like here. So it would include things like what your organization's focus is, what your interests are, and what kind of your EU funding goals, what your EU funding goals are, and what the strengths that you would kind of bring to an EU funded project might be. So maybe you have a really good communications team, you have a lot of background in creating training modules. So you can highlight all of that on your profile. And then what we do is we disseminate this database out to Europe. So European organizations that are looking for English-speaking Irish project partners can reach out to you directly to invite you into projects. And so we manage this all ourselves, so they're all up to date, and they really kind of highlight the best that we have to offer in terms of Irish civil society organizations. So I would encourage you to take a look at the database, see what your colleagues are doing, how they have presented themselves, and go ahead and create your own profile on the database. And again, I'll include a link to creating your profile in the follow-up email. So that is basically Access Europe in a nutshell. And thanks, Christina, she shared some links in the chat there. So I think that's it from us. So just a big thank you to Suzanne and Katie from Léargas and to Cormac for being here today and presenting all that useful information. So hopefully people have some food for thought to kind of take away. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks for coming this morning.
Bye.